Think big, Leo. Think that you're going to hang 10, if you know what hang 10 means.
Is that a brand that is
No,
a?
no. It's standing on the very front of a longboard.
Oh no, I have no idea. Write that down. Hang 10.
Hang 10.
All right.
And then hang 2. That means you got to have the cojones to get out there on the big surf. But anyway, Lee wouldn't understand any of that.
Not
Yeah. So we've got a rowdy crowd here this morning. I've started recording, but I can't get the session going.
Oh, no.
And I'm also getting messages that my internet is unstable. So yeah, I'm not too sure what's going on there. So hopefully you can hear me and we can get the session going as I am recording. So morning, everybody. Welcome. So this morning we're talking about individuals that maybe not well known that have inspired us. So who do you know that nobody else knows that has inspired you? So, it's a bit of a switch on one of the typical networking questions. So who do you know that you could help? But this is a case of who do you know that has helped you? So Lee, do you know anyone like that?
Well, I deliberately kept it lesser known because I don't know this person, but I don't know that he's not a well-known person unless you are a Lego fan. So again, I'm like Leo. I'm not a Lego fundi, but recently watched The Lego House as a documentary on Netflix. And I found it fascinating and inspiring, and I just absolutely loved the commitment to a little plastic block and what it has enabled in the world, in people's imagination, in generations playing together. And so I did some research, and one of the people that I was completely and utterly in was the CEO of the Lego company. And he had so it's a family business. So yes, but it's a generational story. And it just fits in with, the story of generational wealth and legacy building and so on. And so this man, you can tell, we talk about, yesterday in UK Wisdom Chats, we talked about respect. Well, this man commands respect for no other reason than he takes Lego very seriously, but he takes fun seriously. So it's not like he's strict and demanding. He is so passionate and so connected with what Lego is about that everybody wants to please him. So if they're building something, then it must pass the Kirk test. And you can, even these really top execs, when they have to pass something by this guy, they're on edge. So anyway, I did some research and I found out who the founding father was, which is his grandfather. And it is the most incredible story. So this is a man, Ole Christensen is his name, grew up in a rural area, farmland area in Denmark, very poor just before the First World War. And discovered a love of carpentry. And long story short, built up a factory making household goods out of wood, and built quite a successful business, only to find, so one of the things that happened early on is that his kids were playing amongst the shavings in his workshop and lit the whole place on fire, burnt down his factory and his house, gone. But no worries. He decides, okay, now that I have to start from scratch, I'm going to build a bigger factory and I'll put the apartment on top. So built up his business again, and the depression hit. And slowly but surely he had to let go staff. There was no, then the Second World War hit, the occupation of Denmark by Germany. Nobody had any money to buy even the most basic things. And so he had to declare bankruptcy. But he decided that what he would do, but he just kept himself going. And he moved he still had this love of carpentry, and he started making cheap wooden toys. So the first Lego, the sort of iconic Lego toy is a little pull-along duck. And he also created the Lego name, which in Danish means play well. And and then so now he's building up his toy business. It's starting to get a little bit successful. Guess what? There's a short circuit. It burns down again. And so he builds it up again. This time now he realizes wood is too expensive, and he finds this plastic. And it takes a long time. They play with the Fisher-Price version, and eventually they get to the point where they've created the Lego block itself. And so it's just a story of perseverance, of finding your passion and following it, of picking yourself up through adversity, and then passing on this incredible love of what you do. And one of the legacies, so this is one of the legacies that I only learned this with the research, because I heard the CEO of this when I was listening to the Lego house. He kept saying, only the best is good enough. And he would ring that over and over and over again. And that went back to his grandfather, his son came to him one day and said, I've saved up some money. I varnished the duck with 2 layers of varnish instead of 3. And the father said, no, it has to be 3 layers of varnish, because only the best is good enough. And it was such a life lesson for this chap that he carved that into a plaque and had that put on his office, and that remains as the motto and the ethos of Lego. And then you can follow the story, because Lego itself has had its ups and downs, had to reinvent itself, and it's come back to its core principles, and that is play well, that children learn and grow, and what they're positioning themselves to be now is the preparing the builders of the future. But so that you can tell, I got all enthusiastic, and I really was utterly inspired by a man, a family, and a commitment and perseverance. So there you go. Lesser known, maybe not Lego, but did you know the story?
Thanks, Lee. No,
I've got to jump in because I had to run off. I think this is the most amazing little corporate training program. It's a Lego training program, and it's called Serious Play, and it's designed for C-suite executives and all staff, etc. And we've been talking about metaphors, and here in a page is metaphors. Metaphors are powerful tools that can lead us to think about our realities in new ways. These might challenge existing assumptions and beliefs and reveal new possibilities. And your trick is to build descriptions of individuals in your organization, and they've got examples of an eagle-eyed employee that they build out of the pack. So they give you a pack. Now, the thing that I've got to say about this, Lee, just you bringing this up tells me, and I think this company is almost a century old. Is that correct? Can't hear you.
It was it's not quite a century old. It was formed in the 1930s.
Yeah, that's where it is. But what this tells me is that everything is a go. That there is just nothing you cannot do with anything. You look around here and you can build a business from what is right under your nose right now. That's what this tells me. You've just got to keep at it, keep thinking about it, and simple ways to get out to the marketplace. But anyway, I thought you must see what's on our shelves here. My creative moments. When I'm sick of listening to you guys, I actually switch off the screen. I bring out the Lego and play with it.
Well, Trevor, do you want to carry on? You might as well.
Am I allowed to carry on?
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping to have my mate on board, but these guys, this is the wrong time. My mate's down in Belita. This is the time they're all out in the surf or mountain biking and that sort of thing. And I was thinking about the story. You were basically saying unknown people, or not famous people, who actually inspire you. And as I was thinking about that, now, can I get this down? No, I can't. Why not? So let me try and find, sorry, stop share. Let me see if I can find another one for you. Just hang on a moment. Sadly, it just doesn't come up when I want. I'll have to shut screens and that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm gonna do something different. In fact, you might just be able to pick up something here. Let me, no. Have I stopped share?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I've found, I've been clearing out all my cupboards, and I found a newspaper clipping dated February the 3rd, somewhere February the 6th or 11th, 2013. And this is a mate of mine, Mike Pengeli. You might have seen a picture of us shooting a rapid. This is the guy who was the back of that canoe. His name is Mike Pengeli. But in this particular article, now he must have come visiting and actually sneaked it into my cupboards, because I can't remember this particular article, and he would do that sometimes. I did invite him on here to actually stand up and hold his own place. But Mike, one of the most liked individuals in the country, but unknown by many, but known by hundreds of his mates. Now, I basically, we started playing polo together, and then I went off to army in different directions. I then came back, and one day our rugby practice was cancelled, and they were running around. He'd run a couple of comrades already, and they were running around a hockey field. Our rugby practice was cancelled, can you believe, because it was raining too hard for some of our boys, and they didn't want to run in the rain. So I got the needle with that, ran down to the hockey field, joined these guys. 6 weeks later, I was doing my first comrades. And I did 10 comrades with Mike. And this particular article here, he was in that picture. I think you can see he was 66 years of age then. He's 7 years older than me. That makes him 73 at the moment. And at that picture, it was a celebration of him doing his 40th mid-mart. Now, both he and I did the first ever mid-mart together, and that story was about it. I think I did about 15 or 17 of them. I'm not one that actually just goes on and on. I'm not stupid. He just goes on and on. But he did 40 mid-mart miles. He then did 30 comrades and 20 doozies. No, I lie. 30 doozies and 20 comrades, because that comrades is terrible. And in fact, at one stage, he had done 20 comrades, 20 mid-mars, 20 doozies, all in the same year, all in a row, which gave him 20 Ironman titles all in a row. Now, some people turn around and they say, geez, Trevor, how did you do 10 Ironmen, 10 this and 10 that and 10? please, man, you know what? I can't even carry this guy's shoes. I won't tell him unless he actually comes on. Yeah, I might boast about him. But we had a lot of fun together with this. And I was thinking, you know, this is a guy, and this is the type of network that I actually grew up with. And this question of who inspires you. And I'm now at 66, into my 67th year at the time that this picture was taken. And I was thinking about that question, Lee. And so this is going to floor you. So strap yourself into your chair, because I don't think I'm inspired by anyone. And I think if I try and go back, it's not a case of inspiration. It's a case of actually reading widely, looking widely, having a look at people that do things and saying, hey, that's interesting. Can I go and do it? Or shall I actually do this? Because I think there's a huge problem with being inspired by people and putting them up on a holy, you know, on this platform of, man, they're hugely inspirational, because most of the times they're actually going to let you down. And that is because people are made up of such significant, inspirational people have got the same blooming weaknesses that each and every one of us have got, and they're going to be tripped up somewhere along the line, and they're going to upset you big time. In fact, I'm looking at my shelf. Just hang on, I'm just going to run away to my shelf here. So if a book is an indication of who inspires you, all right? I mean, this guy's a monkey, but he's on my bookshelf because I thought what he did with the broken window syndrome back then was a stunning thing. And I wanted to read about it as the mayor of New York, and I love New York, and I got into it. Man, I'm busy here, the same as the Bill Cosby books. I had Bill Cosby books on my shelves. They're in a throwaway box at the moment. Why? Because was I inspired by these guys? Is that why I went out and bought these books? But anyway, let me get back to Mike. So I'm trying to say that there's something different for me about this thing of being inspired by others. It's be inspired by the things that they do, but perhaps not the individuals themselves, because they're going to let you down big time. And then look to, if they really inspire you to go and stand up on a board and paddle across the Atlantic, then go and do that. I think that was a story that Leo had. Just to continue Mike's story, Mike, about 5 years ago, one of the most super fit guys you would ever know, is mountain biking the whole tooties in Belito. He fell over the front of his bike, and that just caused a whole series of challenges. He went off to a doctor. This article was about how he'd broken his arm, and when he next phoned me, he was recovering from a triple heart bypass. And that triple heart bypass, that happened about 3 years ago. They took his heart out, stuck it next to him. And you know, we have a funny relationship. So one of the comments I made at that time is, hey, man, you were beside yourself at that. So, well, that cracked him up laughing. But I have never seen the most motivated, inspirational type of figure be so depressed, because his life had completely changed. And within about 6 months, he picked himself up again, and then he's off on his mountain bike. He went off to international life-saving world masters champs and all that sort of thing. But I saw this drop in him as an individual. Well, you can imagine if your heart was taken out and was stuck next to you, and they were cleaning out your arteries and putting it back. Quite something for an individual like this who's highly active. Now at 73 years of age, they have to screw him down to actually keep him in, and that's why it's probably not on here. I tried to get Chris yesterday and Mike today. These guys are always out together, either out in the surf or on the mountain bikes at this time of the morning. You will never get these guys into a forum like this. So Do they inspire me? Well, this is someone that inspires many, many people. I know him because I've always been alongside him, so he can't fool me. And I would have loved him to be on board here so he could tell you how I inspire him on a daily basis. And if you believe that, you believe Trump as well. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Trevor. All right, so yeah, is it the deeds or is it the people? I think that's a good point. So, Ed, seeing that you're the Lego man, I think we better get back to Lego after all of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much because Trevor's inspired me to go running, and I want to go running as soon as possible. I'd like to thank Lee for giving me the opportunity to use a word I love, and that's ubiquitous. Because Lego is ubiquitous. You've seen, straight away, Trevor went and got a thing about Lego. I've got Lego as my avatar or whatever. And I even popped up an article about Lego on the beach in Cornwall. A container fell off a ship in 1997 off the coast of Cornwall. And Lego pieces have been washing up ever since. And a friend of mine, Tracy Williams, spends all her time sort of searching the beaches, and she's got a huge collection. There's a Facebook group and whatever. But I think, it was quite interesting because Trevor was looking at the good side of Lego and how it was used for training. And then I'm seeing the bad side of Lego in that it's polluting our beaches with plastic. And I think that's the same for everything, isn't it? Our industry does good and our industry does bad. And I suppose it ties in with Trevor saying, never meet your heroes because they'll disappoint, because they're human. I love the desert. When I'm in the desert, I'm inspired by the massive views, the big views, the emptiness, the long views to the mountains in the distance. I love that. But I'm also inspired by seeing a little tiny flower flowering in the sand. And from my Scotland trip, yes, there were great views in the mountains, great views across the sea. But the thing I remember the most from my trip was a little tree struggling to grow on a rock. And that inspired me. And I thought I'd talk about a person that's like that flower or like that tree. I met her about 18 months ago, maybe not quite 2 years, but probably a little bit more than 18 months. And we've become good friends. And when she was growing up, she knew she was different. And like a lot of people on the autistic spectrum, if they're not too far along it, she learned to act so that she was like other people. So, she knows how to behave, to look like and seem like and behave like other people, but inside she's not. And of course, occasionally she gets a lot of things wrong because she's not very good at the whole interaction thing. And she'll pass things by me and say, Edward, I'm thinking about writing this letter. How should I change the wording? Because she's a bit blunt. Or she'll say to me, look, I've got this problem. How do I deal with it? And she works as in a charity that helps domestic abuse victims. And she knows she's never, ever going to earn much. And her dream job, she's working towards, is to be what they call a independent, advocate for victims of sexual violence. Because the criminal justice system in the UK, and it's probably the same all over the world, really chews up and spits out the victim. And she wants to be, and there are people that will be an advocate for the victim and help the victim through the process. And she wants to do that because of something that happened in her past. And to me, she's an inspiration because it's fine to be inspired by people that have like lost a leg and then run across the desert, or had both their arms chopped off and then sailed across the Atlantic. but for someone who's got an everyday problem that they deal with every day, and she just says to herself, okay, I'll overcome it. If I have to act like what other people are like, I will act like what other people are like. And she's just got such a big heart. And she just teaches me that you just say, yep, okay, I am where I am. I'll just get on with it. And the other thing she taught me, and this happened the other day, about 2 weeks ago, she asked me what my favorite bird was. And then 2 days ago, this turned up in the post. Don't know if you can see it, a bit of light catching on it. A beautiful drawing of a kingfisher, my favorite bird. And inside the card, it just said, thank you, Edward, for being my friend. And that taught me that I should do that more often. I should say that to people more often, that I appreciate them. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for being there. Whether it's, people I meet on internet forums, whether it's friends, whether it's family, I don't think we say thank you enough. And she just taught me that, reminded me that. So yeah, she's the person that inspires me the most, I think. And she's that little tree on a rock, struggling to survive in tough conditions, but determined to make it. And she will make it. She will do what she wants to do. So that's mine.
Great, thanks, thanks Ed. Yeah, I think that's a great story, and yeah, amazing how these things can impact us if we let them. So Leo, let's get across to you next.
Yes, for me, a little bit of a personal one. I am probably going to call this up dad, down dad. The person who inspired me was my dad, that I was fortunate enough to be locked down with at the beginning of COVID, and probably has changed my life. He was always grateful, always thankful, never complained. And the whole time I was with him, it was like he valued me for everything I did. And it changed my life to such a capacity. He passed on last year, and Mom effectively was my down dad. And while I love her to bits, her negativity and her micromanagement had left a really negative impact on me, so much so that when I turned 60 and they moved down to Cape Town, I became depressed for a year. And I could do no right with this woman. And I love her, and I need to be careful how I talk about her, because she enabled our family to achieve what we have achieved in terms of, they both came from Holland and came here with nothing, and effectively they ended up financially free. Was able to send us to varsity, and that was really Dad's hard work, but Mom's thriftiness. So I need to be careful how I talk about this. But if it wasn't, so Mom passed before Dad, 6 months before Dad, and effectively that took away the constant negative in my life. I mean, I visited 3 days a week, and it was just nothing was ever right. And so spending time with Dad, who valued me in everything I did. I just hoid some stuff in the car quickly, on the day of lockdown. My sister wasn't allowed to see him, and then locked down with him. And I've only recently moved out of the retirement village because I wasn't able to get out because of the lockdown. And the amazing things that happened since, with Dad, when he passed, now I'm in lockdown. So what do I do? So, I was able to lose 30 kilograms. I was able to start writing a book, of which I've already finished one of them out of 4. And I'm busy working on a business. I'm talking to people at 75 million rand levels that I probably would never have done before. Talking to CEOs, I have just spoken to. So I spoke to a guy in France who had a business, and and asked him to be my mentor, and in starting this business, and he wasn't able to. But I would never have had the courage to do that previously, and so I think for me, Dad is the unsung hero. No one will know about him. They'll know about him through me, because I'm going to put him in my book, and I'm going to start a foundation with both of their names. But so he's my inspiration. Well, inspiration is maybe the wrong word, but he has made such an impact on my life by valuing me rather than by downing me, that I think I will forever be grateful.
Oh, that's wonderful, Leon, and I think you bring out that message very strongly, and I think it aligns with what Ed was saying about his friend as well. When someone values you, or you value someone, you can impart huge value in their lives, and inspire them to do things that they might never have otherwise done. So yeah, great story. Thanks very much for sharing that. Very personal. I appreciate that. Right, Jesper, over to you.
Morning. I see the word inspiration is, what is a word you're using, Ed? Ambiguous or something. That Trevor says, nobody is that good to inspire you. But I think the reference here is almost who had an impact on your life and for what reasons. And I will take it from that angle. And I just quickly made 3 names. And in the first one, Brian Murray, he was quite influence in my life when I was a young up-and-coming person in the corporate, and my ambition was to become the CEO of a company. And then we were exposed to the old Golden Products, which is now called New Life. And Brian Murray was the CEO of the company in South Africa. And he came from a background where he was a CA and CEO of quite a few corporates, and then felt frustrated and moved out of that into the field of selling, and had to relearn himself because he wasn't a people's person. But how he reinvented himself was such an inspiration for me, because I needed someone from that kind of background that showed me, the professional side of, call it the whole selling field, and how to relate to people. And he was an exceptional human being in terms of, and I think Liu mentioned it, where he made people feel valuable, and you just wanted to be in and around him, and he inspired you to even attempt things that you personally wouldn't like to do. But he didn't force it on you. It was just his way of handling people. So I learned a lot from him, and to this day, him and his wife, or how they handle things, is still very much a way that my wife and I referred back to when we have to deal with people. Then the second person who made a huge impact, and I never had chance to spend a lot of time with him, but he's a Swede, Gunnar Olsen, and he was also an up-and-coming corporate riser, and at a young age had everything going for him, and then had a spiritual encounter where he felt, but he needs to take God on at his word, and he started to live the Bible practically. And in his autobiography that he then wrote many years later, I came to know about him in 2005, and the practical living, and where he had to gone through hardships, and what he's sharing in his book, but then experienced the miracles in his life of God coming through for him and miraculous things happening, showed me that I was playing around with this whole concept with Christianity almost as a religion, and for that matter, then you may as well do any other religion, Buddhism, anything else. But it's different to have a relationship and take God at his word. So he's been a huge inspiration, and I had the pleasure of having a few breakfasts with him over the years. Now he's a retired man, and he's got a company with a factory and very successful, but it's more just his life and how he went about living his life. And then the last example is a black lady, Sarah Sotongo, and I met her quite a few years ago in the entity where I met Gunnar, the International Christian Chamber of Commerce. And she's one of these very passionate women, extremely well spoken and very what do you call it, sold out to a cause. And she just felt she needs to empower people. And she started training companies. So she comes as a highly degreed person in the corporate, but she left the corporate to start a training company. And I knew of her. And so when I wrote the book in 2017, I was at a conference with the ICCC with a small group of people, and she was there, and I just gave them a complimentary copy. Now, what inspired me about her is that I gave copies of my book to many people, but she's the one that took what we've envisaged should happen through this whole mindset of generational thinking. And this last Sunday, I did just a presentation on gig, but she said, can I do a quick testimony beforehand? And I didn't ask her. So she did a voluntary testimony of how this concept of thinking generational has impacted her life. And she called it Save the Marriage. But just simple little things that she started to apply. And she inspired me because I know at the time that I gave it to her, she had no income. And she was quite severely in debt. So now it's 2021. And the reason why she wanted to have that testimony is to say, in January this year, now that's during this COVID period, in January this year, she paid off her last debt. So to me, that's inspirational when people take the little things in life. Like Ed would say, you know, that tree that managed to grow out of the rock with nothing going for him. And I think that inspires me to have these kind of people around you that almost endorse the cause that you committed to, but you don't get any feedback. Is it really impacting lives? And then you hear this one story, and then you feel, you know what? The pain of the last 12 years was worth it. I'll do it all over again if I can just impact that one life. So yes, that's my contribution.
Great, thanks, Jasper. Okay, yeah. So to wrap up very quickly, because we have run over time, I'll just give you a very short story. So when I was thinking about this, I really struggled to think of someone, and then as people were chatting, and as I was thinking before the session started this morning, I thought, well, you know, and I think I've told the story before in some of these sessions. Someone who really inspired me in many ways was my grandfather. You know, he was a man who was absolutely dedicated to staying basically fit. He was never a marathon runner or a performer of any kind, but his entire life he was always doing his fitness exercises. He took on the Canadian Royal Air Force 5BX program. So if you know that program, he used to do that every single morning, well into his latter years. His entire working life, most of the days when it was possible, he walked to work and back. You know, so he was always out walking. He was always doing those sort of things. I can remember him in his 70s. One of his party tricks was to stand on his head and drink a beer. So if you think you can do that at any age, never mind in your 70s, particularly tough thing. And yeah, he just always stayed active, always stayed fit, always stayed engaged and curious. Well into his latter years. I mean, he passed the age of 96. You know, and in his 90s, he was still exercising. He would take his bicycle out on the weekends and ride around the tow bridges in the UK where he was living at the time on the weekends. Always go for his walks during the week. Didn't matter what the weather was like. and I mean, I can remember having discussions with him when he was in his early 90s, which is now 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer. And you know, we would chat about you know, microchips and processors and things that were completely alien to him when he was growing up. Most of them didn't even exist. You know, he was born in 1903. And at, you know, in his 90s, he had this interest. He was still engaged. He was still involved. His clarity of thought and his physical condition, you know, was amazing for a man of that age. He used to come over to South Africa to visit once a year, and he would say, "Well, I'm going to visit the old people in the old age home." And those old people he was visiting were the children of his friends that were now in old age homes. Not even his friends had all passed on, and yeah, you know, just to have that, you know, that engagement with life. Let's call it that. I think I really find inspirational, and it's you know, it's encouraged me to try and stay fit and keep going. I haven't been as dedicated as he has by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly as I get older, I'm seeing more and more the value of what he actually did and the way he did it. And I think you want to live a long, healthy life, and I think we are living longer and longer by and large. You know, these years. Certainly don't want to be old and decrepit as some used to say, and yeah, so yeah, to stay young, stay curious, stay involved, stay active, and so that's the inspiration I gained from him. So that's mine in a nutshell, Lee. So back to you to wrap up, and what's on the cards for tomorrow?
Thanks, Ivan. I think you know, based on Leo and your stories, and of course having Jasper here and talking about his book, I think the word that I'd like us to sort of discuss around tomorrow is the word legacy. So what is it? What does legacy mean to you? I think let's just leave it at that.
Great, thanks, Lee. So from Lego to legacy, we're taking the L's in our stride here. But I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Go well.